All right, the Boxing Voice here with Jim Lampley. Now we're heading into the rematch between Tim Bradley and Manny Pacquiao. You know, their last fight was probably the most controversial fight in a very long time, at least in the past decade or so. What was your take on the first fight?
Pretty good fight, not a great fight. I don't score fights, but my general sense was that Pacquiao had won it, and won it quite clearly. I was very shocked by the decision.
For me personally, I'm on the complete, as Larry Merchant said, the rest of civilization didn't agree with me, and I actually scored it for Timothy Bradley, 7-5.
You, Tom Hauser, Bart Barry, and Brian Kenny. Those that makes four of you.
So and the judges, of course.
And yes, that's right. And C.J. Ross and Dwayne Ford.
So I'm
dinner
in
for
good
six.
But I also was able to score. I've scored several times. Also gave it to Manny Pacquiao a handful of times. I had 5 swing rounds that could have gone either way.
Well, and that's what Max Kellerman says. Max went back and looked at it in a very detailed fashion, and Max believes that there are 7 rounds that he believes very clearly Manny Pacquiao won. There's 1 round that he believes very clearly Tim Bradley won, and then there are 4 rounds which could have gone either way. This is from Max, who picked Bradley to win the first fight, thought Pacquiao won it, and now is picking Bradley to win again, I believe.
Awesome, man. So, given all that has transpired, what do you think happens in the next fight, in the rematch, with everything of the last 2 years where Manny Pacquiao has seemingly kind of fallen from grace and hasn't really proven much with his his fight with Brandon Rios, and Tim Bradley has overcome so much in that Ruslan Provodnikov fight and outboxed one of the best boxers of the last generation, Juan Manuel Marquez. What do you think happens in the rematch?
Well, let's quickly examine what you just said. I think that Bradley gets credit for an accomplishment against Ruslan Provodnikov, but by the same token, he almost lost a fight against a fighter who had not previously been exposed on a higher platform than ESPN2. It was close fight, and many at ringside felt as though Provodnikov should have won it. If they had scored it carefully, I don't think they necessarily would have come to that conclusion, but people remember fireworks, and Ruslan provided most of the fireworks in that fight. As for the Marquez fight, I personally felt that Bradley won it. I thought that the decision was correct, but if that fight had been scored for Marquez, there would have been no giant controversy. It was a very close fight. So it's not as if Bradley has gone out and torn the house down coming off of the first Pacquiao fight. As for Pacquiao, yeah, he took a fall against Marquez in a fight that he was winning on the scorecards, and in which he had bloodied Marquez's face. So it wasn't as if he didn't get anything done in that fight. Maybe he pressed too hard for a knockout. Maybe that's something to think about as he gets ready for a fight in which his trainer is once again urging him to press for a knockout. And then he fights Rios, and going in that, number one, he's going to win the Rios fight because Rios is still as a statue compared to the kind of movement that Manny can produce in the ring. And number two, he isn't going to get much credit for it because everybody knows that Brandon is basically a plotter who isn't on the same skill level with Manny, and that it ought to be an easy Manny win. If anything, if ever there was a fight where you might think that Manny could have pressed harder for a knockout and tried to please the crowd with something more spectacular, maybe that was the Rios fight. So, I think that there are nuances in observing what both fighters have experienced since the first fight.
So perhaps Pacquiao's lost.
Now, as we get ready for the second fight, you have this new mental environment in which Bradley seems to want to hammer home the point that he won the first fight, and is motivated by a desire to prove to fans and media that he was the real winner of the first fight. That could be a little bit misguided because this is a separate competition. This is not the first fight. This is another fight. And Freddie Roach, who watched his fighter get knocked out by a strong counterpuncher when he pressed the issue perhaps a little too hard against Juan Manuel Marquez, is again urging his fighter to press the issue and seek a definitive conclusion. Now, I don't think that Tim Bradley can hit you as hard with a right-hand counterpunch as Juan Manuel Marquez can. So maybe Roach is correct in assessing that the danger isn't the same in trying to press the issue against Tim Bradley. But still, most of the civilized world, absent you and the other three media members I have mentioned, scored the first fight for Manny Pacquiao. So there's a certain logic to the question of why would you do anything different? Most people think you won 8, 9, 10 rounds in the first fight. Why change? Why not go in and do exactly the same thing? It's fascinating to me that in my view, misguided judging and the media response to that has created a whole new psychological environment in which both fighters could be subject to certain pitfalls as they approach the second fight.
Well, thanks a lot.